Good evening there, everybody. Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, anyways, I thought that, of course, I would talk about the most recent interesting boxing news within that of the boxing world. And for those of you, of course, that don't know what I'm talking about, Caleb Plant and David Benavidez, two of the best top contenders at 168 pounds, they apparently are going to have a super fight, I believe, next year. Now, I do not know specifically what the date is. I believe, though, that it is going to happen somewhere around January 2023, somewhere around there. Haven't heard any specific dates, but somewhere around there. So we'll see overall what ends up happening with that. But I thought that this was very particularly interesting, not only in my opinion because of the platitude of the fight or how big the fight is, in my opinion, but also when you talk about other certain people's opinion about this fight. A lot of the times on my channel, what I like to do is review other channels or review videos from other channels to see their opinions, and I kind of either react to them or overall I will kind of, state certain things that I think either A could be in the double standard category or I think overall shows a little bit of hypocrisy. And I find this very interesting because out of all the channels that I tended to review, Dante's Boxing Nation, Boxing Eagle, Aki TV, Blue Blood Sports TV, a certain amount of the guys, the same guys that claim that Caleb Plant was allegedly this weak European white boy, and that's the reason why Canelo Alvarez picked him. Well, apparently, those same channels and all those same guys, they're very, very excited for this fight to happen. And they've been basically online talking nothing about, or basically talking about nothing else other than this fight, claiming about how it's a great pay per view fight and that it's worth every penny. Well, here's my question to those guys and to the same people that believe that Caleb Plant apparently is this weak European white boy. If Caleb Plant is this weak white fighter, why are you so personally excited for the David Benavidez and Caleb Plant fight to happen? Because I assure you, people can actually realize who is a weak contender and who is not a weak contender. Because if we were to take a look, for example, at the 135-pound or the 140-pound division, if you were to have Shakur Stevenson fight Jose Pedraza next, yes, it will gain a little bit of steam, but mainly no one will really give a shit about it. So Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez, the fact that it has gained the amount of traction overall that it actually has, once again just goes to show you that these guys knew all along overall that Caleb Plant was a very decent contender and that they were lying to you. They were lying to you, and the reason why they were doing that once again is to tear down Canelo because they do not want someone like him overall, especially of his complexion, to be known as the number one pound for pound fighter. Okay, it's very clear the facts are out there in the open. I've been saying this for months upon months upon months. It just is what it is. All right, there's no way that you apparently think that Caleb Plant is this weak European white boy and that he apparently has no chance against Canelo and Canelo's cherry picking opponents, but then apparently he's facing the guy that you claim will beat him in David Benavidez, and apparently this is a super fight. That doesn't make any sense. So once again, that's a big part of the reason why I have reviewed a certain amount of these other channels, especially when it comes to Canelo, because it's very obvious that they have a very, very, very big racial issue when it comes to a certain amount of these fighters. And that is why they don't give credit to certain fighters like a Canelo Alvarez, a Vasily Lomachenko, or as someone like an Alexander Usyk, a Naoya Inoue, yada, 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 or a Tyson Fury. They don't like those fighters. And listen, to a degree, I understand. Can they overall be hyped up a little bit by other boxing medias, especially to make them seem more dominant than black fighters? There's a little bit of truth to that, but once again, we must realize when certain fighters are truly great and when overall they may be just caricatures or when they may be just great white hypes. And Canelo Alvarez is far from a great white hype. And in my opinion, so is Caleb Plant. But just to talk overall about this fight once again, I thought it was very particularly interesting how all of a sudden some of these guys who claimed that Caleb Plant was this weak European white boy in the past, all of a sudden they changed their tunes completely. I just find that interesting. But enough about that. Let's now talk about the fight and, in my opinion, overall, how good of a fight it is. I do think that it personally is a very interesting fight. If you had to ask me, in my opinion, do I think that it is a 50-50 fight? No, I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. I personally believe that David Benavidez is going to have the upper hand. And some of you may ask me, well, why would you state that? Because you stated in the past that Caleb Plant, in your opinion, was an A grade level fighter and you stated that you think that Canelo would beat David Benavidez. So why would you not have this along the lines of a 50-50 fight? Because I think that styles make fights. And when you talk about the type of style that Caleb Plant has. I think that he has more of a style that, in my opinion, was more troubling for Canelo Alvarez than overall what a David Benavidez would be, at least a Canelo Alvarez at his best. Now, David Benavidez is mainly a pressure fighter, and Dimitri Bivol was able to show that if you're able to fight back with Canelo a little bit, even though his stamina was horrible in the fight, talking about Canelo Alvarez, so we'll see what happens if there is a rematch with that fight. But when it comes down to it, all in all, you can maybe fight back with Canelo Alvarez a little bit, and overall, maybe make him a little bit uncomfortable. Do I think that that's mainly going to work with David Benavidez? More than likely not if Canelo shows up at his best, because I don't think that he has the same level of power as a Dimitri Bivol. And on top of that, I don't think that he has really the type of skill. However, against Caleb Plant, in my opinion, I just think that Caleb Plant, in my view, I just think overall that more than likely that he is going to lose to David Benavidez for a couple of reasons. I think that David Benavidez, if you were to talk about him facing any one of these guys who are very similar in size to each other, with Demetrius Bubel, Andre, Caleb Plant, and Jamal Charlo, who all look to be around natural 160 or maybe 168 pounders, David Benavidez is pretty much a light heavyweight that's fighting at 168. That's pretty much what he is, at least in my view. So the only fighter that really overall is going to be able to, in my opinion, at least be favored over him in terms of a fight there, that is not really a natural light heavyweight or a natural super middleweight, is only going to be Canelo Alvarez. And that's because he can handle that type of power. He usually can handle whatever skill set is thrown at him. And on top of that, he has great power and an exceptional skill set himself. Now, Caleb Plant, in my opinion, has a very good skill set, but I would probably place him along the same lines as a Jamal Charlo or a Demetrius Bubel Andrade. And I would not favor either of those fighters over David Benavidez either. Because even though I would say that in terms of skill set, they're probably along the same lines as a David Benavidez, I just think that David Benavidez is going to be a little bit too big. It just is what it is. And on top of that, when I take a look at Caleb Plant's style, I don't know if he's going to be willing to try and make David Benavidez as uncomfortable as what he is going to be willing to do. And when it comes to a David Benavidez type of style, you are going to have to try to make him uncomfortable. Because if you're just on the back foot the whole entire time, which is what I personally assume that Caleb Plant is going to be, I don't think that's really going to work out for you as well. Unless maybe you're someone like a Dimitri Bivol, who could be on the back foot the majority of the time, but could hurt him at basically any instance with his type of punching power. But I don't know if Caleb Plant has that. He doesn't have bad punching power, in my opinion. But in order to really make David Benavidez uncomfortable, he's really overall going to have to try to make him uncomfortable and try to put him on the back foot at times. You don't have to do it 24/7, but you are going to have to do it here and there. You are going to have to make him a little bit uncomfortable. And in my opinion, I just don't know if I see Caleb Plant being able to do that with David Benavidez' size, and on top of that, with Caleb Plant's natural style. I still believe that he is an A-grade fighter even at this point, but on top of that, with the knockout that Canelo Alvarez gave him, I'm not really sure what his confidence level is going to be later on down the line if David Benavidez is able to get with him with a certain amount of combinations. So we'll see what happens. But it is going to be a very particularly interesting fight. It is going to be a little bit of the clashing of styles. And good on David Benavidez for finally being able to get a big fight. And this is why I also get on Jamal Charlo's ass and Demetrius Bubel Andre's ass to a degree. And people always make excuses for them and say, oh, well, they're avoided by a certain amount of fighters. Well, there's a certain amount of fighters that have been avoided in the past. But when you see a fighter that apparently can't get any big fights whatsoever, it's not really on everybody else. It's on you. It's like when you see a person once again that it's almost kind of like one of those single mothers that you would see that apparently says, oh, there's no good single men out there and, all men are trash. But really what you figure out about them, at least if you know them personally, is that they're not really that good of people. And that's the reason why they attract the same trash men or the same trash people, because they're really a piece of shit. It just is what it is. But anyways, my point being is this: a lot of the times the things that end up happening to us, it's really more of our own fault than anybody else's. And that's why I get after Demetrius Bubel Andrade and Jamal Charlo, because apparently for them allegedly being so interested in making a lot of these big fights, they've turned down a lot of opportunities. So I have to give David Benavidez a great amount of credit here. He's seen an opportunity here and he took it. So very good on him. But we'll see overall what ends up happening within this fight. And if David Benavidez is able to beat Caleb Plant, like what I assume more than likely he will be able to, Canelo Alvarez is going to have to fight him. whether he beats Dimitri Bivol or whether he doesn't within the rematch. I believe that Canelo more than likely is going to go after Dimitri Bivol in a rematch. And don't be surprised if they say that that is Canelo Alvarez's way of avoiding David Benavidez. Once again, these channels have a very big personal issue with Canelo, so it is what it is. But I believe that Canelo more than likely is going to go after the rematch with Dimitri Bivol. But if he's not able to get that fight, if Dimitri Bivol is not interested, Canelo is either going to have to face Jamal Charlo or that of a David Benavidez. He's going to clearly have to pick one of the two fights, more than likely probably David Benavidez. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's really about it for today. I just thought that I would talk about that. I found it very particularly interesting. And we'll see overall what ends up happening with this fight. Very excited for this fight. Very interesting. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.